Now, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, Nigeria has pushed major economic and security reforms to stabilize the country's finances and attract investment. Officials point to improved fiscal health, rising revenues, a stronger foreign reserve position, and a new initiative like the gas flare commercialization program aimed at boosting power generation and job creation. Yet, challenges remain serious. Nigerians continue to feel hardship from high living costs, unemployment, and insecurity across regions, especially in the north where violent conflicts persist. Critics also argue that inflation and currency pressures have eroded savings and living standards, and that revenue claims are disputed as debt rises and economic pain lingers for ordinary citizens.
Now let's continue the conversation of the Tinubu administration. Joining us for more is Dr. Usman Bugaja, who is a political and history scholar and a former minority leader in the House of Representatives. Great to have you this morning.
My pleasure, except that I wasn't the minority leader.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks for that correction.
But I was in the parliament, and I chaired the Foreign Affairs Committee while I was there.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for the correction. All right, let's get straight into it. The president was quoted this morning as saying that he is deploying military assets to fight insecurity and that he's committed to keeping Nigeria safe. Are you convinced by what he said? And give us your assessment of how he's handled insecurity so far, as well as the economy.
Well, I'm always interested in metrics. You know, we need to have an agreed metrics to be able to measure things. If you go by the textbook definition of democracy and issues of security, clearly this government, or Bola Tinubu's government, has failed to deliver on what is most important, because in the hierarchy of human needs, human life comes first. And if you look at the statistics of the death and the blood that was shed since he came, if you look at the kidnappings, you look at the ransoms, I know we don't have accurate statistics, but even going by what is available, you can see that there has not been any improvement in terms of security. You sometimes judge an administration by the quality of the people it appoints. Now, if you look at the Ministry of Defense, for example, I mean, the people that he chose to give the Ministry of Defense were people who may be good in themselves in some other fields, but certainly defense is not anywhere near their area of competence. If anything, the Minister of State, Ministry of Defense, who is still in the ministry, has been accused, in being in cohort with the same bandits. Now, these accusations can be proved later, but there are lots of information circulating to the effect that he was part of those who was actually funding bandits. Now, whether this is exactly what they claim to be is a matter to be decided either by investigation or by the body of evidence that is emerging now. But how can you be serious about security when you have taken people who are least qualified to be in that place? It looks like he has done so deliberately because he wants the insecurity to continue so that the North will continue to go down or the country will continue to, I don't know what the benefits are, but certainly in terms of security, the present government has not done anything too different from the government before. If anything, it has deteriorated. Now, whenever I make this statement, I make excuses for people who are in the system, who are doing their best, who are losing their lives, who are giving up, the most valuable asset they have, in this world just to protect us. I salute their courage. We all appreciate their, but there is no point for an administration to be sending poor young people, ill-equipped, ill-motivated, without any without caring to ensure their own safety in a very dangerous space. While the bandits are waxing stronger, challenging government. We have seen clips of bandits basically challenging that this government cannot do anything, and they are dictating their terms, they are taking over. Recently, they have said they were going to clear the forest, they were doing this, they are doing that. I have seen some activities around the Sokoto area, but it's too early to say if this is going to yield to anything. But I think the one last point I have to make on this is that the current government is not only unable to solve this problem, but I think is being reckless and is being irresponsible in this matter of security.
Right. So now, are Nigeria's security challenges more political than military at this stage?
The question of politics takes a lead because it's a question of leadership. It is the leadership that determines the level of, if you like, impact, because they as leaders are the ones who give directives and who source the funding that is necessary and supervise the dispensing of the funds to ensure that the actual work on the ground gets done. So yes, there are military challenges. There are other institutions of security that are not performing, in their optimum, but the final responsibility goes to the leadership. To this extent, you can say yes, it's political, because it's the political process that produces leaders. And what we have been suffering from, right from 25 years ago, has been a process of poor leadership, or if you like, leadership that seems to have, which is defined by poor education and poor upbringing. So you have people without the knowledge, without the character, taking positions of leadership, and therefore they are unable to deliver, on any of the deliverables, and yet they continue to remain in office, and that violates the social contract on which democracy is predicated.
Yeah, Dr. Usman Bugaja, I think this conversation comes quite timely with you being a former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives during your time. A couple of weeks ago, the U.S. government declared Nigeria a country of particular concern. I'm sure you have some strong opinion about this, on how we have reacted to this, and also on the nation's, on the federal government's ambassadorial list. I'm also sure that you would have something to say. And just recently, the response to insecurity, the federal government saying it's mobilizing military assets. Is this the right approach, deploying, concentrating heavily on kinetic approach rather than the comprehensive approach that entails the non-kinetic approach, considering the number of out-of-school children we have in the country, which many experts say is a breeding ground for terrorism in the country? What are your views on this?
Benga, this is very loaded. You have three very clear issues there.
Yeah,
you have issues of security.
Because your position
you have issues of diplomacy.
In polity is also
you have
loaded.
issues of the institution of foreign affairs itself. But let me start with the security, because we have just been talking about it. I think the basic thing about security is that this government, and I'm not saying that everybody in government is not serious, but this government is not serious about security. It's 2 years already, in session, and we are not seeing any improvement, in spite of the fact that, but like I said, even from the appointments it has made, political appointments in the defense ministry, it is clear that they have not intended to bring the necessary impact that everybody was expecting them to do. So yes, there are still huge challenges. I hope the fact that America has thrown its weight behind some of the concerns, I'm not saying I agree with what they are saying, and I think Donald Trump is the last person you would expect to help you in any way. He has not helped Americans, and if he speaks about genocide, you have to look at the genocide of the black people in the United States. And we have to go back to the United States history and see that it's a country that was built, on genocide. They killed the, the Red Indians that were inhabitants of that place to make room for the white immigrants that have been there. They enslaved black, Africans. And they were the people who built all these huge mansions, including Washington itself. In fact, the architect who designed the city of Washington for George Washington was actually a black person, a very brilliant genius, who has now been left into the dustbin of history, as if that the blacks were not did not contribute to the building of the United States. They were the people who actually did the toiling, that actually built the states and built the roads and built the economy. But see where they are. Look at the cases of black harassment all over the place. So he is the least qualified person to speak. But you see, it speaks to the emptiness of our leaders. It speaks to the poor education. They do not seem to know that first, we're not an American colony. We're not anybody's colony, at least for now. We are independent. And America is just a state like, a sovereign state like Nigeria. They have no business. If America decides not to have trade, not to trade with Nigeria, that's their own business. We have got trading partners. Why should we even ponder? Why should we even care about what America is saying? What is America? Look at other nations who are standing up to America. Look at Venezuela. And they are doing very well. How many people have stood up to America? Where has America gone to produce, to solve any problem? In Vietnam, did they solve any problem? In Afghanistan, wherever they have gone, they have not solved any problem. So I think it's the dearth of leadership that has given America even the clout or the audacity or the, this idea of considering countries of particular concern. We are also considering America as a country of particular concern because of the terrible thing they've been doing in Gaza, because of the way they have supported Israel against the wish of their own citizens. Look at the demonstration that took place. Look at the works, what Jeffrey Sachs and other leading public intellectuals are saying about America. So the summary of all this is that, one, I think the Bola Tinubu administration are not only failing in securing this country, but they are also destroying the very institutions on which this country is relying on to be able to function as a sovereign nation. Two, I think this idea of America considering or describing or taking Nigeria as a country of particular concern and therefore coming to check if we are doing things correctly is the worst thing that has happened to us since our independence. Because nobody has the right to determine how we run our state. It's our business and our citizens. Of course, if there are violations of international law, there are mechanisms through the United Nations that should be taken. But America has no business to come here and start dictating to us what to do or what not to do. So it's really sad that we have deteriorated to this level where, of all people, Trump, of all people, Trump for many Americans is a tragedy. And we are trying to cope with our own tragedy here. And I think the last point on this is the point I have consistently made, that our problem, when you reduce it to what it is, it comes to leadership. And we are not able to do anything until we fix the leadership recruitment process. At the moment, our leadership recruitment process is not calibrated to produce the best of us. It is calibrated to produce the worst of us.
All right. The Supreme Court has ruled that the president can take extraordinary measures to prevent the breakdown of law and order. So essentially upholding the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State and for the future as well. Some have said that this will undermine democracy, that it is a blank check. What's your response to that judgment?
Well, the Supreme Court is all part of the institutions that are going down the drain. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court has lost a lot of its integrity in previous judgments, and many citizens suspected. If you listen to what Chidi Odinkalu has been saying, if you listen to a former Justice of the Supreme Court, Det Tijo, when he was leaving, the kind of remarks he made, if you listen to a number of credible legal experts, discussing the court. So I suspect that it is some kind of connivance to give President powers that he doesn't really have in a proper democracy. So I find that quite disturbing, and I hope lawyers and experts in the field will challenge the legitimacy and the kind of integrity of that particular statement. But let's go back to the issue of the powers that the president, I have said earlier, behaves honestly like a monarch, not like a democrat, because he speaks about the things he wants to do in a way that does not seem to give any room for consultation or for consideration of other citizens. In so many ways, look at the way the tax law was passed. Basically, at one stage he said he wants this thing to be done irrespective of the National Assembly. And the National Assembly were sitting there, basically like some dead institution, and up to now they have no proof to us that they are alive to their responsibilities. And people who have occasion to interact with the National Assembly, these are usually ministers or head of MDAs that go, they find that the National Assembly does not like to discuss any idea of how these institutions are run. All they are interested in the money. And because of this, we are really in a very serious problem. And I think it is time young people try to wake up from their slumber and salvage their country. This has been done in a number of places. Look at what Kenyans, young people in Kenya have done. Right. They have stood up to the mess that politicians are making of their country, even as they have not quite gotten there. But they have shown that they are present, they are alive, they are alert, and they are ready to really protect their own future. Right. I think young Nigerians have to organize and have to stand up to this.
Well, right, thank you very much, Dr. Usman Bugaja, who is a political and history scholar. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Indeed, and that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. I'm Benga Ashur. It's goodbye from me.
And I'm Constance Ikoku. Thanks for joining us on Daybreak today.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.